feet was slipping. Shout out to Christine Brennan. Team USA, y'all need to stop playing. Hold on, wait a second. Y'all will recognize and appreciate Caitlin Clark as the face of this whole get up. Nobody's checking for these other, no disrespect. Great basketball players. That don't mean people checking for you. You mean to tell me y'all put other people's face all on the Team USA stuff and y'all left Caitlin Clark off of it?
Look at that Just look at that reaction. That is not simple disappointment. That is pure, unfiltered disbelief. And it's because USA Basketball just put out the promotional materials for their upcoming December training camp. And if you can believe it, the single biggest star in women's basketball isn't on the graphic. I'm not talking about hidden in the back or in tiny font. I mean, she is completely gone. This is a player who all by herself made WNBA viewership explode by 400% in just her rookie year. This is the player whose jersey sold more than every single other female athlete's jersey combined. And what did USA Basketball do? They decided to spotlight Jackie Young, Kelsey Plum, and Kalia Copper for their training camp promotion instead. The person who broke this whole story was Christine Brennan, who's been covering Olympic basketball since. The fact that she dropped this news at midnight on a Friday should tell you exactly how big of a screw-up this really is.
Really wanted to go all out promoting women's basketball, bring new fans in, and get unprecedented attention for a team that dropped in TV viewership at the Paris Olympics. That's right. The women's USA viewership dropped at the Olympics in Paris. Nobody was watching it. They would have added the photo of one of the player to this graphic, but no.
But wait, it gets even worse. Here's the background that makes this whole situation a total disaster. The women's basketball team at the Paris Olympics experienced a massive nosedive in their viewership compared to what they used to get. Brennan pointed out that the TV ratings tanked mainly because casual sports fans just didn't have a big name or an exciting story to get them to watch. Sure, the diehard basketball fans were there, but that wider audience, the one that actually brings in the big advertising dollars and gets the media talking, they just didn't bother to tune in. Now, let's compare that to what we just witnessed during Caitlin Clark's first season in the WNBA. The Indiana Fever games were pulling in an average of 1.2 million viewers on cable. The arenas she played in were packed with crowds that the sport hasn't seen in more than 20 years. Places that were normally half full were completely sold out, sometimes weeks ahead of time. The entire blueprint for success was laid out right there for USA Basketball. They saw the whole season play out, they saw the insane viewership numbers, the merchandise flying off the shelves, and they saw news outlets from all over the world sending people just to cover this one rookie. And after seeing all of that undeniable proof, their big move was to literally leave her off the poster.
Yeah, well, I've given it, as you know, over the last 60 hours. I broke the news right around midnight, Friday to Saturday morning. And I think on both fronts, merit and publicity, you, of course, mentioned it, you know, it's just a total swing and a miss by the national governing body, by USA Basketball, just a missed opportunity. And but I'll start with my answer by saying I have covered this women.
Okay, you really need to hear what Brennan says about her experience at these gold medal games. She talks about being in the press tribune, which is the special area for the media at the Olympics, and she actually used the word tumbleweeds to paint a picture of the attendance for a championship game featuring the most dominant dynasty in Olympic history. Let's be clear, the U.S. women's basketball team has not lost a single game at the Olympics since They have a streak of 7 straight gold medals, making them pretty much the most successful franchise in any Olympic competition for men or women. And yet, journalists whose entire job is to cover basketball are deciding to skip their games because there just isn't enough public interest to make the coverage worthwhile. Bob Ryan, who is one of the most legendary basketball writers in the business, was talking to Brennan about this very same issue all the way back at the 2012 London Olympics. That was over a decade ago. So this problem has been festering for a long time. The difference now is that women's basketball was handed a golden ticket, a clear solution to their problem, and USA Basketball is making the conscious choice to just throw it away.
You put Caitlin Clark on that team, the team that so richly deserves attention and doesn't get it and won't get it without her, because there's just so much going on in an Olympics. On that same day, there probably will be 30 other gold medals given out, and sports editors and others have to make a decision. Do you go to Simone Biles? Do you go to women's soccer? Where do you go? It's not, there's just too much going on. You put Caitlin Clark on that team, and every single one of those guys that can't stand women's.
And pay close attention to this next part concerning male sports journalists, because Brennan is not sugarcoating anything. She's laying out a hard truth that you rarely hear people in the sports media admit. There is a group of reporters who will go out of their way to cover the men's Olympic team, but will flat out refuse to write about the women's team, even when they're playing in the exact same building. This isn't about a scheduling issue. It's a calculated decision they make based on what they think their audience wants to see. These writers base their coverage on what stories their editors will run and what headlines will get the most clicks. So when they ignore women's basketball, it's a clear signal that they believe their readership doesn't care. But here's the thing. That entire equation got flipped on its head during the 20s. All of a sudden, the very same journalists who wouldn't give women's basketball the time of day were desperately trying to get press passes for Indiana Fever games. Media companies from across the globe were sending people to Indianapolis just to cover a rookie. Brennan even brings up a British reporter at the Masters golf tournament who told her he was making plans to cover Caitlin Clark at the Olympics. The global demand was there, the international hype was real, the media was ready to go, and USA Basketball's response was to leave her off the team completely, hiding behind excuses about rewarding veterans and protecting team chemistry.
About the Dream Team in 1992, Rich, the men's team, how that grew basketball around the world, especially for boys and men, and where it reached Africa. Well, the opportunity with Caitlin Clark's popularity, Africa, Europe, Asia. Think of how many number 22 USA jerseys would have been sold. Money that could have then been pumped back in to help have developmental programs in the.
Now, she makes a direct line comparison to the 1992 Dream Team. And this isn't some crazy exaggeration. It is the perfect parallel. When the original Dream Team with Michael Jordan, Magic, and Larry Bird showed up, they did more than just win a gold medal. They completely transformed the global perception of basketball. An entire generation of kids in Africa, Europe, and Asia fell in love with the sport because they saw that team play. Think about it. The NBA's incredible international growth over the last 3 decades can be traced right back to the worldwide exposure that the Dream Team created. Today, the league has players from 40 different countries and makes billions from international TV deals. All of that momentum began by putting the absolute biggest stars on the Olympic platform. Brennan is making the case that Caitlin Clark was that same kind of opportunity for the women's game, not just here in the US, but on a global scale. Imagine number 22 USA jerseys flying off the shelves in places where women's basketball is barely even a thought. Little girls in countries with no professional women's leagues would have finally had a global icon to look up to. The money alone is mind-boggling. USA Basketball could have funneled all that merchandise money into their own development programs or used bigger media deals to fund youth basketball all over the world. But instead, they went with a choice that put short-term team dynamics ahead of monumental long-term growth.
See what I'm saying? Christine Brennan gets it. Brennan gets it. Regardless of how you feel about her, she's been on this stuff from the beginning. Caitlin Clark got disrespected by Team USA when they had her coming off the bench when she was, 17? Y'all had her coming off the bench behind Haley Van Lith. Like, what are y'all talking about?
So, here is why Christine Brennan's credibility is so critical in all of this. She isn't some social media influencer just trying to get engagement, and she's not a rookie reporter trying to stir up drama to get noticed. This is someone who has covered every single Olympics since 1984, written for the biggest newspapers, and has deep connections inside USA Basketball's entire organization. So when she tells you she's witnessed the lack of interest with her own eyes, she's talking about literally standing in empty press boxes at gold medal finals for the last 40 years. And when she mentions that her very next interview is with a radio station in New Zealand, she's showing you that the international press is actively chasing this story down. That is not something that typically happens over a simple promotional poster. That is the world's media seeing that USA Basketball just made a decision that has massive global consequences. And you have to look at the timing of this. The training camp on December 11th is still weeks away. We are just talking about the marketing material for a team practice, and it's already sparking this level of international news coverage. That fact alone should be a giant red flag to USA Basketball, about just how badly they have misread the room.
Clark got disrespected by Team USA when they had her coming off the bench when she was, 17? Y'all had her coming off the bench behind Haley Van Lith. Like, what are y'all talking about? This stuff has been going on far too long. Team USA, y'all need to get it together. Respect the woman with the throne. Get down in the comments. Let me know what you think about this.
And now we arrive at the historical pattern of behavior that makes this whole thing so incredibly frustrating. This is not some isolated incident. It's not the first time USA Basketball has completely fumbled the ball with Caitlin Clark. Back when she was just 17 years old and playing on their youth teams, they actually had her coming off the bench. I'm serious, not even starting, while Haley Van Lith was getting the starting spot. Just let that sink in. The very player who would eventually shatter Pete Maravich's all-time NCAA scoring record. A record that nobody touched for 54 years, was deemed a bench player for a youth squad. The person who would go on to command more media attention than any female basketball player in history wasn't seen as good enough to start for a junior national team. And you can't just write that off as hindsight being 2020. Even back then, Caitlin Clark was displaying elite-level talent. She was already showing off the kind of court vision and shooting ability that put her in a completely different category from everyone else. And yet, USA Basketball's talent evaluators somehow decided she was better suited as a reserve. So what this whole promotional graphic mess really pulls the curtain back on is that it's not just a simple marketing blunder. It's the continuation of a long-running pattern where USA Basketball fails to recognize the value of the one player who has done more to elevate the women's game than anyone in the last 2 decades. Just think about what USA Basketball's mission is supposed to be. Of course, it's about winning medals, but it's also about growing the sport. That is written right into their organizational mandate. And growing the sport means bringing in a bigger audience, increasing the number of people playing, sparking media interest, and building financial stability. By every single one of those measures, Caitlin Clark is the single most valuable asset the sport has ever had. She brought in a bigger audience by converting millions of casual fans who had never seen a WNBA game before. She boosted participation by inspiring countless young girls to start playing. She created a level of media frenzy from outlets that usually ignore women's sports. And she proved the sport can be incredibly profitable when it's marketed the right way. USA Basketball had a front row seat to all of this during the They watched the entire commercial landscape of their sport transform in real time. And when it was their turn to promote a simple December training camp, they put out a graphic that highlighted players from a previous Olympic team that posted disappointing TV rating. That isn't just being out of touch, that is a sign of deep organizational dysfunction. It shows a governing body that has no idea what its own product is or who its audience has become. The WNBA just signed a new collective bargaining agreement that gave players huge raises and better benefits. That deal was possible because the league could walk into negotiations and point to skyrocketing attendance, soaring TV ratings, and a flood of new sponsor money. And all of that leverage was created almost entirely by the tidal wave of attention Caitlin Clark brought to the league. Every player in the WNBA is now benefiting financially from her impact, whether they choose to admit it or not. That new CBA doesn't get signed without the power that comes from that kind of explosive audience growth. And that growth doesn't happen without the one player who turned women's basketball into must-see TV for millions. Now USA Basketball has the 26th Olympics on the horizon. These are gigantic opportunities to build on the incredible momentum from this past WNBA season. Los Angeles means hometown crowds, primetime TV coverage, and a global media presence that will make Paris look small. But that kind of momentum doesn't just stick around on its own. The casual fans who got hooked on women's basketball because of Caitlin Clark need a reason to stay invested. They need to see the superstar who brought them in competing on the world's biggest stage. If USA Basketball snubs her from the roster again, or keeps downplaying her role in their marketing, those new fans are just going to disappear. And here's the brutal truth about losing momentum: you never get it back. The 2024 season was pure lightning in a bottle. It was the perfect storm of a generational player, a fascinating story, and a media world desperate for something new. USA Basketball has a choice. They can either seize this moment, or they can completely waste it. And right now, it looks like they are choosing to waste it. They are making choices based on old-school politics, seniority, and outdated evaluation methods that are completely ignoring what is actually happening in the real world. They are choosing the comfort of their old system over a once-in-a-lifetime chance to transform their sport. Brennan has been around this game long enough to know a major strategic blunder when she sees one. She's seen USA Basketball win on the court for decades, while failing to build any lasting interest off of it. She has witnessed gold medal games happen with barely any media coverage or public excitement. And now she's seeing them make the exact same mistakes all over again. At the very moment the solution is standing right there in plain sight. The one player who can fill those press boxes, the one player who can drive global media coverage, the one player who can sell jerseys in markets that don't even have a women's league. That player is Caitlin Clark, and USA Basketball just left her off a post. So the real question isn't if this was a mistake. The question is if this organization is even capable of learning from its blunders, or if they're just going to keep going down this same path until every last bit of momentum from the 20, because that energy won't be around forever. And once you lose it, it's never coming back. So what do you all think USA Basketball should do? Should they pull the graphic and put out a new one featuring Caitlin Clark? Should they come out and admit they messed up? Or is this just a small marketing issue that people are blowing out of proportion? Let me know what you think down in the comments, and make sure you subscribe, because we are definitely going to be following this story as we get closer to that December 12th training camp.